Expo. Actually, this. So yeah, it was originally the Terra DApp Expo, and because of certain reasons, that event wasn't able to happen as expected. But our friends at Orbital Command, they basically organized this entire thing. They were validators on Terra and recently joined as validators on Osmosis. So definitely make sure to delegate them to them. But yeah, so we basically we realized this was a good opportunity to sort of help introduce a lot of the projects that we're building on Terra, and a lot of them are looking for a new home in the cosmos, and Osmosis is like a great place for that. And so so what's great is Osmosis, everything just goes so smoothly, everything works perfectly, never have issues. Yeah, not so much, right? The timing of it was obviously a little bit weird. Reminds me a little bit of like DevCon 2. This is like a picture from, if anyone was around, this was back in like 2016. It was the infamous Shanghai attacks, where at the Ethereum developer conference, there was basically an attack being done on Ethereum. The chain was basically unusable for like multiple days on end, and everyone was like, okay, Ethereum is dead, it's never recovering, and that's basically how it ended, right? So, this was the War Room, Alex Bandisand, and a bunch of other people. And so this was our War Room last night, where we are sort of working through some of these issues and figuring it out. The bug that was found, it was honestly a very simple bug. Basically, what was happening was, in this upgrade, there was a refactor to the AMM module, and that basically every time you joined a pool, you accidentally got 50% more LP shares than you were supposed to get. Yes, it is a very, very dumb bug. But the real question is not why this code wasn't there. The question is why this code wasn't there. Why this is the test that was should have tested this, right? And really, what happened was I think our team had spent a lot of time testing some of the very advanced, more complex edge cases. We spent a lot of time testing single-sided liquidity, because we knew that's where some of the complexity was, and then somehow we had failed to test some of the most simplest things. And really, what this shows is that we do need a little bit of a rework of process in our security pipelines. We are innovating, but that shouldn't come at the cost of security. We'll have a full, more in-depth bug report soon, but as well as a plan for how do we make sure we improve our processes so this doesn't happen again. Audits and stuff are not, audits and bug bounties and stuff are important and are part of the solution, but really, what we need is security is about the process, right? And we need to be rethinking about how, our entire development process from beginning to end. Some things are definitely more documentation and comments. One of the most important things of getting this stuff bubbled up faster is making sure just the number of people who are able to understand that code base and making it easier for more people to understand what's going on. Better code review processes and involving more parties in this. So something interesting we actually did in the V8 upgrade was we actually had this, that was the one that was sort of right after the Terra collapse, but basically we had worked with, we did a live stream with a bunch of validators who were able to come on, and we sort of walked them through the changes that we were making, and the validators were able to go through that. And I think that actually, it didn't surface any major bugs or anything, but it definitely helped to make sure that more validators understand the code base. And I've actually been, since then, we see more validators contributing, because once they understand the code base in such a way. And more focus on end-to-end testing. I think one thing that we didn't do well in this upgrade was this time we didn't actually hook up the front end to the testnet and actually test, this could have been a simple test we could have done. You know, we had all these unit tests and stuff, but sometimes the best way to test it is, you know, building a proper QA system that can actually, you know, just manually test these things out and see what's going on. And then finally, responsible disclosure systems. You know, huge thank you to the users that sort of found this bug early on and reported it. Problem is, it was reported on Reddit, and that kind of allowed many people to sort of see the bug and it kind of explode it, which I'll get into in a little bit. But you know, what are the some of the, you know, what you guys are really worried about is your money safe, right? So, you know, after our analysis, we basically come to the conclusion that there was about $5.6 million of funds that was overdrawn from the pools. Majority of it from pool 1, but some from other pools as well. And the vast majority was from a handful of addresses, you know, somewhere between around 8 exploiters who were like, you know, doing it again and again to extract as much money as possible. What's good is basically almost all the major exploiters are in contact with us and proactively working with us to return the funds. And they are even signaling intent to do so. If you go on the Cosmos Hub, they are basically making transactions with the memo field saying, you know, they would like to send the funds back to the community pool or to the recovery addresses. So this sort of cryptographic proof will give the Osmosis validator the ability to sort of you know, freeze their funds in this upgrade, and like, you know, there's a consensual freezing of funds, and many of them are funds that have already been moved off of the chain. They're in the process of returning them to a multi-sig that's controlled by the foundation right now that will be used to refund people. However, significant amount of funds can't be fully recovered. One of the biggest attackers, they took all the atoms that they had and they converted it to ETH on SIP chain, but suffered like 80% slippage, and that caused so that's a significant amount of funds that was lost. As well as there was a lot of users who sort of over 1,000 just normal people who were just joining the pool since the upgrade and basically accidentally used the bug. And you know, our preference would be that, you know, philosophically, you know, we've always talked about how, you know, we have this commitment to immutability and stuff. And so, you know, I think that's why, you know, we have a strong preference to avoid breaking that. And so that's why instead of going in and like changing the state and like removing LP shares from the people who accidentally exploited it, we, you know, the Osmosis core dev team, you know, takes full responsibility for this bug, and we're gonna actually just be doing a full refund from the core developer account rather than doing any sort of rollback or irregular state change to fix the bug. So, you know, like I said, huge thank you to all the users who had detected and reported the bug, the validators for their swift action, basically from the point that you know, validators were able to take down the chain in basically like 12 minutes after the Reddit post was posted, and so that helped protect a lot of user funds. A lot of community leaders for helping, you know, organize and getting the messaging out. A lot of core devs the past couple of days for working to get this, you know, squash the bug. A lot of people from the community, you know, Geo, who we just talked to, a lot of folks from Hather nodes, getting like helping with the data analysis, figuring out how to make sure every account for everyone who was harmed, and so we can recover them, and then all the exploiters who have been proactively working with us to return the funds. So thank you to them as well. Especially Firestake, you know, they were sort of one of the first ones to actually come out and like before we even send out any messages or anything, they kind of reached out to us and like offered to return the funds. So yeah, so you know, what's the plan for the restart? We're in the process of properly testing the bug patch code, as well as figuring out how to measure the affected users and distribute recovery funds. And the network should restart, I think, within a couple of days. We don't have like an exact timeline of when we want to do that, but it will hopefully be within the next couple of days. And yeah, I think this is an opportunity, almost a little bit like a rebirth. one of my friends from college, he used to have like 2 birthdays. We called it his birthday and his rebirth day because of some medical issues, he was legally dead for about 8 minutes, and then he came back, and we actually celebrated his rebirth day. And so I think this is an interesting opportunity. It was interesting opportunity to sort of like look back and like appreciate the things that have happened and where we're going from here. So I think let's talk. I'll kind of like go into like sort of my originally scheduled programming of Osmosis year 1. Just taking a look back of like lots of ups and downs, definitely a roller coaster. From Genesis, we've had over $17.6 billion of cumulative trading volume, which is quite cool. We have over 330,000 accounts that have made a trade on Osmosis. Liquidity had its ups and downs, but a lot of that was, one, due to price action, as we're all probably familiar with. But if you actually redenominate it in looking in Osmo terms, minus the hit on liquidity from the Terra collapse, it's actually been well on the process to recovery, and that shows that people aren't leaving the system. People are actually still staying. People, even after the Terra collapse, people are still constantly adding more liquidity and staying in the system. The volume chart. And along with just being the DEX, Osmosis obviously has this very important role in the Cosmos ecosystem. It sort of is the biggest, most well-connected chain, most number of IBC transactions, most number of IBC volume. And since, part of the goal when we built Osmosis was to sort of help kickstart the Cosmos network. And I think we've done that in a lot of ways. From the time that Osmosis launched, there was 8 assets that were IBC enabled, and today there's 61. I think that's on asset. I think that's change that's IBC enabled. I imagine this number is just going to continue to increase at a faster rate. And there have been 4 million IBC transactions on Osmosis alone since Genesis. And we've pushed the envelope forward on proof of stake. Superfluid staking, I think, is probably the biggest update to proof of stake since Jay invented slashing, I guess. And what's actually really cool is I think we haven't gotten a chance to fully do the data analysis yet, but the extra security we got from superfluid staking actually helped secure the chain from a liveness fault in case. So during the Terra collapse, there was a risk that the Terra chain could have gotten 2/3 attacked. And if that was the case, they could have used the UST to take enough Osmo to sort of do a 1/3 attack on Osmosis, but that was not possible because of the additional security we had from superfluid staking. So that kind of really showed our thesis that this model works. And we've also done a lot of cool things on governance. I think Osmosis is probably one of the most active DAOs in all of crypto. We have an average of 5 governance proposals a week, which is a little bit crazy to try to keep up with. But I think that's a cool way to kind of look through the history of Osmosis and some of the cool things that have happened. We had our first ever governance proposal within hours of the chain launching. It wasn't really a real proposal, but within a couple of days we had our first real proposal, which was to add liquidity incentives that are fully DAO controlled. Many DEXs, they'll have their dev team or something just choose where liquidity incentives go. But in Osmosis, this is actually fully controlled by governance, which is quite cool. And the next governance proposal, which I still don't quite understand what it was, we were on the side of the bill. I'm pretty sure this is Jacob. I don't know for sure, but it definitely feels like a Jacob thing. Very early on, we had governance already starting to fix problems, right? So if anyone remembers the first epoch, there was confusion on whether there was rewards being distributed or not, and governance went in and actually fixed that with the community pool, which is quite cool. Governance has been adding new features to Osmosis, so integrating CosmWasm. A lot of cool things done with the community pool as a treasury. So the Stargaze community loan is, I think, one of the most interesting DAO to DAO interactions that has actually happened in all of crypto. It's been moving forward on like social good. And Osmosis is the first chain to for the chain itself to fully offset its carbon emissions. So, there are other chains oftentimes, like the foundation will buy carbon credits and like offset them on behalf of the chain. But here, it was literally the Osmosis governance system buying carbon credits from another blockchain region and fully on-chain carbon offsetting, which is quite cool. We've been also use other carbon credits to create sort of a carbon market. So one of the big focuses of the Cosmos ecosystem is this move from degen to regen. So like regenerative finance, and Planet First Finance, Gregory from Region will be giving a talk actually about regenerative finance on Osmosis later today. We have sub-DAOs, right? We have these, a fully on-chain run community support DAO, which helps a lot of our users, pays the admins and moderators that help you with all your issues, and even help our organizing, a lot of the events and the party that happens in 2 days. So, and then there's the Osmosis Grants Program. The Osmosis Community Pool has sponsored conferences, which is really crazy that blockchain sponsors a conference. Sometimes I think voting periods sometimes some of the governance processes can take longer than we'd like, such as the bridge proposal. Maybe it was a little bit too stretched out, but in the end, I think it usually makes the right choices. We're really excited to be working with Axelar to build a lot of these cool bridge UXs. And sometimes it doesn't make the right choices. So, if anyone remembers the infamous stripper dollars proposal about UST on Osmosis. So, but what's important is that we make things right and we learn from our mistakes. So already, a lot of incentives have been moving from the Terra-based pools to more Ethereum-based stablecoins and like ETH and stuff. We're bringing in more and more assets like BTC right now, right? And I think going forward, Osmosis will be expanding from just this like Cosmos only DEX, but to be the true interchain DEX of connecting to, of course, IDC enabled chain, also all these other ecosystems as well. So a little bit of like, okay, so that was year one. Where are we going from here, right? What are going to be the big focuses going forward? So one is a big focus on safety. Basically, I think one of the biggest things that's missing in crypto today is a usage of rate limits, right? Like, obviously there was a lot of bridge hacks in the last couple of months, and a simple thing that can be done is like, there's no good reason that more than 25% of your bridge's volume or the TVL should be like leaving in a couple hours. Like if that's happening, there's probably some mistake, a bug or something, and you should probably like slow down the bridge. You can apply similar ideas to the AMMs themselves. So we've been working on a research project with Blockchain at Berkeley called Volatility Aware AMMs, which is basically a way of saying that like, hey, what do market makers do at times of high volatility? They thin the order book, right? Why aren't AMMs doing similar simple techniques where you can slowly pull liquidity from the AMM as volatility increases and then slowly add it back in as volatility decreases, and this is a way of helping LPs save a lot on their impermanence loss. You can do a lot of cool things with downtime MEV protection, where if the chain is off for a while, as soon as it comes on, you don't just want this like sudden MEV grab bag. And then similar things with staking. A big focus is new forms of custody. One thing, I think most people here are probably aware, but the Osmosis and Kepler teams have very high significant overlap. One of the goals with on the Kepler side right now is we want to get to a world where you can have the security of the ledger without needing a ledger, right? We do this with the auth-z system that Gio was talking about right before this, where you can have things like rate-limited hot wallets, session keys, where instead of having to open up Kepler every single time you need to make a trade, you can generate a hotkey in the browser that has a trading limit. Be like, okay, this hotkey is allowed to trade up to 1% of my my assets in a certain period, and then if you need to trade more than that, that's when you like break out the other keys. You can have social recovery systems, and then a lot of this gets superpowered with Cosmosm as well. I think probably the first government DApp that's going to be deploying onto Osmosis is Apollo. They built this like sort of, if anyone who's used the native Cosmos SDK multi-sig, you will know it is one of the biggest, it's the bane of my existence. But being able to use things like Apollo Safe will make this whole process a lot easier. Another big focus is the trading engine, right? I think today we have these very sort of simple AMMs that are very similar to Uniswap, but we want to push the envelope forward on this, and how can we create more useful things? So the big one is one of the sort of ones coming very soon is StableSwap, and this will basically make it easy for much lower slippage when you're trading stablecoins. But then we're also doing something called scaling factor governors, which can make it useful for things other than stablecoins, but things that are highly correlated. So imagine that we have a staking derivatives platform, and you have Atom paired with staked Atom. But what happens is that the staked Atom, the staking derivative, slowly increases in value relative to Atom, and so you can actually have it so you can designate a address as a scaling factor governor. It could be a Cosmosm contract as well. And what this will do is you can have it so you can say, okay, we know what the staking rate on the Cosmos Hub is right now, so we can actually have it so we constantly are readjusting where the peg is, so that way you don't have this known drift at an IL for the LP. So that's quite cool. Definitely going towards adding more order book style systems, but really going the concentrated liquidity route similar to Uniswap v3. Uniswap v3 is an order book in all but name. For anyone who's not familiar, the Uniswap v3 system, basically what it does is it allows you to set rate, instead of putting your liquidity full range across the entire AMM, you can put it on you can say, I want to concentrate my liquidity in specific bands on the AMM. And what's really cool about this is you can actually have this effectively act as a limit order. This is something that the Uniswap system doesn't really, Uniswap didn't implement this basically, but you can take the Uniswap v3 design and extend it even further to have these limit orders, where what you can do is basically say, hey, look, as the price moves within your band, it changes your ratio of assets. But as soon as it goes out of position, what you can do is actually have it so it removes that liquidity from the pool and effectively acts like an on-chain limit order. And using this, you can basically treat it like an order book. And this is really the right way to build order books on chain. So, centralized exchanges, they, even at times of high peak throughput, they throw their clusters of GPUs at them, and even they struggle, right? Serum on Solana, it works in normal times, but we have yet to see that does Serum/Solana work at the peak times of high peak throughput, which is when you need to depend on it the most, right? And so basically by using the Uniswap v3 design with our adjustments to make it more order book-like, this will basically make it a more scalable on-chain order book that will be secure and usable in those high throughput times. There's a project called Autonomy that's working on adding stop orders to Osmosis, so that should be, I'm sure a lot of people will look forward to that. And then we're, a lot of new user flows that we're building. So, better bridge integration. So, today when you want to go bring things from Axelar, you have to go to the satellite site. But the goal is eventually you're going to be able to do this all directly from within the Osmosis website. You can deposit from MetaMask directly, or you can even deposit directly from an exchange. So you have ETH or USDC on an exchange, you can just send that directly to Osmosis without having to make a MetaMask wallet in the middle. And then, a big focus on native to native swap. So this is, currently Osmosis has this UX very similar to centralized exchanges, where you come deposit assets on, then you do your trading and whatever, and then okay, whenever you're done, you withdraw them off. which is great. A lot of people love it. But I feel like everyone still misses that good old shapeshift experience where I have a token on one chain and I just want the token on the other chain, just tell me how to do it. And so this is sort of something that we're working on with the Axelar team is, you have ETH on Ethereum and you want AVAX on Avalanche. How do you make this all happen in one click? You shouldn't have to do the manual, okay, Axelar, then do a trade, then another Axelar send. It's like all in a single click. You wouldn't even need to have Kepler installed at all. You could just be a MetaMask user and do this entire flow. And then, beyond spot. So our goal as Osmosis is to eventually compete with centralized exchanges, right? And you go on your Binance or Coinbase or FTX, and they have spot trading, but that's actually just a subset of what these exchanges do. What exchanges really are this sort of suite of products that's packaged into one unified experience. So they'll often have your spot trading, but they'll also have margin and derivatives, but they'll also have on-ramps and custody solutions and launch pads. So we talked about some of the custody stuff, but when it comes to, this is where sort of the Osmosis ecosystem comes in, where our team, the core dev teams can focus on the chain development and the trading engine, but then some of these other projects can kind of come in and build a lot of these necessary functionality so that the Osmosis chain as a whole can provide the functionality unified experience. So Mars, I think they're going to be coming up next, but they're building the sort of a margining system, and I think they're probably one of the most interesting. I think they're the only lending protocol that's actually really pushing the envelope forward on what can be done really cool with lending systems and credit agencies on chain, and really excited to be welcoming them to the Osmosis ecosystem. We're working with the Cato team to build direct fiat on-ramping. Currently, I'm sure if anyone has tried to acquire Osmo for the first time, it's this very painful process of going on Coinbase and creating a Kepler wallet, buying atoms on Coinbase, sending them to your Kepler wallet, sending them to Osmosis, then swapping. It's okay, how do we make this all a single click? You can buy Osmo or any token listed on Osmosis with a credit card or bank account in a single click. Stream Swap is a launch pad. It was our LBP 2.0, but it's now it's called Stream Swap. So this is a new way for new initial token offerings to happen on Osmosis. Phase, they're building a dollar cost averaging protocol, which is really cool. So you can just say hey, I want to buy $1,000 worth of Osmo, but over the next 5 days, so you get some sort of more smooth thing. But what's really cool is that they will integrate with Mars, so that way your USDC that's being weighted to be dollar cost average can still actually be lent on Mars and be accruing yield while you're waiting for the dollar cost averaging to go through. If you notice, a lot of exchanges have started adding NFTs, so there's stuff in the works. But okay, so what makes this better than a centralized exchange? Are we just basically replicating centralized exchanges? What's the point of even doing this on a DEX anymore, right? I would say there's two things that sort of a centralized exchange can't do that a DEX can. So privacy and composability. So one on composability, right? This is a tweet that I had a couple months ago at this point, but basically, you see in the crypto space, everyone else is starting to think about cross-chain communication right now. In Cosmos, not only have we been thinking about it, but we've been building it and have shipped it over the last 3 years, and we're working on cross-chain composability, right? And so, there's a lot of cool things that came in this V9 upgrade. One thing they forgot there is a cool trick to get 50% APR. But one of the, I think, most important features that came in was this idea was interchain accounts. And this is something, all the other bridges out there right now are yeah, sure, you can send tokens from one chain to another. But with interchain accounts, you can actually have an app or a contract on one chain fully interact fully trustlessly with an app on another chain. So there's a whole ecosystem of applications that are being built on their own individual Cosmos app chains, but still interacting with Osmosis over interchain accounts. So these include things like Defund and Quasar, both of who we're talking later today. Zaki from Allier will be here. White Whale is building like a cross-Cosmos arbitrage system using interchain accounts. So a lot of cool stuff happening with interchain accounts. And then on the privacy side, a lot of cool stuff with front-running prevention. I have a bunch of talks online you can find about those. Working with the Void protocol team to build, they built like a tornado cache style system and bringing like on-chain privacy to Osmosis. And so, how do we make all of this possible, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff needed here, and the answer is developers, right? And so we've added Cosmosm to the chain, but just adding the Cosmosm contracting system is not it's not going to suddenly bring the developers. What you need to do is build the tooling around this. So, we've been working on a framework to make it very easy for people to build Cosmosm tooling. So it's called Beaker, probably check out the name. So it makes it very easy, to do testing and integrating Cosmosm dApps with front ends, and so a lot of cool stuff there. Dan Lynch, he'll be giving a talk later today on a tool he's building called Telescope, which will basically make it super easy to build JavaScript libraries for interacting with Cosmos chains. And we use Telescope to build Osmo.js, which is a JavaScript library to make it very easy for people to build front ends, custom front ends for Osmosis. So you look at things like Synthonia. Synthonia is a project from Bitsong, which is, they built a custom Osmosis front end that's focused on fan tokens, but they're able to use something like Osmo.js to make the process of doing that much simpler. We can use Osmo.js to basically build widgets and stuff that people can embed into other sites. So, I think the JavaScript experience in Cosmos has been sort of not the greatest in the past few years, but we're working to make that a lot better. So these are tools that Osmosis Labs and core dev teams are building right now. But there's also all sorts of other tools that external teams are building as well to make it very easy. So we had a presentation from Leica at the beginning about building Postman for Cosmos. Croncat is building a way to automate a scheduler basically. Andromeda is making this cool tool they'll be presenting later to basically create composable Cosmosm workflows. So we'll have developer tooling will get a lot better. And finally, as an incubator, centralized exchanges have incubators like Binance Labs and so on. A DEX chain should have incubators as well. So this is sort of one of the things that we're encouraging a lot of these Terra dApps to do is the workflow would be come launch on Osmosis, regain your TVL and community, but then once you find that product market fit, then we want to encourage these dApps to sort of break off onto their own app chains, and hopefully they'll all be secured by interchain security and interfluid staking, and so that's Tony Danny is really mad at me because I think I went way over time. But thank you guys.